Welcome to the channel for Akati Grants and Strategy. In this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about how to improve the program design or the strategic plan that you already have in place for your nonprofit program, and how that will help you write stronger grant applications and develop more competitive grant proposals. So let's go ahead and get into this video. You may be someone who has already developed a strategic plan for your programs or a program design for your programs, and you may be thinking, I've already completed that planning process. I already have my strategy in place and my program design in place. So what can I do to make it even better or to make it stronger for the sake of being more successful in the grant application process to win more grant funding for my organization? So I'm going to give you 3 things that you can do really quickly that can help you review your current strategy, your current strategic plan, and think about how to improve it and make it stronger and more effective. So the first thing that you can do is convert your outcomes into a pathway of change. So the first thing you want to make sure you do is understand what outcomes are and understand what a pathway of change is. So outcomes are basically the change you want to see in the lives of the people who participate or who are being served by your program. So each person that comes into your program, they are at a starting point, and your hope and your desire is to help them experience a certain amount of change to get to an end point. So to help them go from point A to point B. So that, in simple terms, is what your outcomes are. What change do you want the people in your program to experience that will improve their life or improve their experience in the world, in their community, or whatever benefit you are wanting them to receive? Many people confuse outcomes with units of production or with outputs. So for example, they may say, we want to provide 150 meals to homeless people in our community, which that is a great goal to have, but that is a measure of production. And that's just measuring an output of how much you have done, but it's not really communicating the change that the person or the community has experienced in terms of measuring the point A to point B. So you want to make sure you understand what an outcome is first. The second thing is understanding a pathway of change. So there's 2 ways of thinking about a pathway of change. The first is thinking about the individual. So that's thinking about what is the journey, what is the course this person has to follow in order to get from point A to point B in a personal perspective. What exactly has to change personally in their lives, what circumstances have to change, what level of exposure or access to resources has to change, what knowledge do they have to be able to gain, what needs to be removed, what negative circumstances or negative factors need to be removed if we want them to go from point A to point B. So you're basically determining what is the path that these individuals need to follow in order to have this transformation in their lives to go from point A to point B. So basically, if you think about a board game or a game of Monopoly, when you're playing that game, you're starting at the beginning, or even the game of life. If you think about the board game called Life, you start at the beginning. Your end goal is to get to the very end and get your family built, get all the money that you need to go through this journey and get to the end successfully, right? So if you've never played that game, then maybe you don't know what I'm talking about. But if you've played that game, then hopefully this is a good example for you. But essentially, when you're on that board game, there is a course that you follow, there's pieces that need to be moved, and then there's different things that have to happen successfully in order for you to reach the end goal. So it's the same thing thinking about the pathway of change for the individuals in your program. What exactly needs to happen for them in order for them to experience that ultimate outcome or the ultimate change in their life? So that's the first perspective. Secondly, you can think about what exactly does your program need to do? What interventions does your program need to provide? Or what series of interventions, if there's multiple things that your organization needs to do to provide a certain level of services or a certain level of interventions and activities and interactions with your participants to help them go along that journey. So you can think about your pathway of change from two perspectives. Think about it from a program perspective of what does your program need to do, what does your program need to provide, what level of interventions does your program need to give, and then thinking about what path does the individuals need to follow in order to experience that transformation for themselves. So that's one way that you can improve your strategy or your program design if you have not yet created a pathway of change and converted your outcomes into a pathway of change. That is something that can make your strategy more clear, more understandable, and more tangible so that you can actually implement it and put it into place. The second thing that you can do to improve your current strategic plan or your current program design is to create a logic model and or a theory of change. So a logic model and a theory of change, they're basically graphic representations of your pathway of change or your desired outcomes that you just identified in the previous recommendation. So this is helpful because it converts what's in a written document into a more diagram representation, which can be easier for people to look at and be able to draw connections and see how the interventions and the services of your program are interconnected and how it's going to help you get your participants from point A to point B. So if you have written out your pathway of change, you've been able to determine what is this graphic representation or what is the pathway that my participants need to follow, what interventions does my program need to provide, then you'll be able to convert that into the graphic or the diagram to be able to show that in a way that can be easier on the eyes, right? So this is beneficial for people within your organization, and it's also beneficial for people outside of your organization. Sometimes when you're communicating about your strategy or you're communicating about the overall design of your program, people can get lost in reading details and reading documents, and they may not fully understand what it is you're trying to communicate. So if you have this graphic representation, it's easy for people to look at this drawing or look at this diagram, look at the charts that are presented there, and be able to follow along to see how, okay, this is the desired outcome, this is how this service or this intervention is connected to bringing about this first change or this first requirement in the lives of the people that we serve. And then here's a second level, we can see how this next set of interventions or this next set of activities that your program provides will help your participants go on to the next level of change, and then see how there are steps and there's levels to the change that you are wanting to bring in the lives of the people that you serve. So a logic model and a theory of change are similar. They have similarities and they can help you accomplish a similar goal, but they also have differences. A logic model will help you be more clear on exactly what resources you need. It'll be more clear on some of the finer details and present the information in a more linear way, whereas a theory of change may not put as much information or as much emphasis on the resources that you need, and it would be a much bigger picture overall perspective of how you intend to bring about this change in the lives of the people that you serve. So there are many examples on the internet, on Google and different places where you can research to find what exactly you would want to include in your logic model or what to include in your theory of change. This video is just to be an introduction to let you know that is a possibility or it's an option for you. If you have not yet created that for your organization or for your programs, that is something that you can look into to figure out how to let that benefit your organization and be able to communicate much more clearly about the strategy behind the work that your organization does. The third thing that you can do to strengthen your strategic plan or your program design is to create an implementation plan. Many people create a program design or a strategy and they don't think about implementation, right? Your strategy or your program design can only be as effective or only as strong as your ability to actually put it into place, put it into action, and implement what you are planning. And sometimes the implementation needs to be planned as well so that you can be organized, so that you can set deadlines for yourself and know exactly what you should be doing, when it needs to be done, and who is going to be responsible for each task. And an implementation plan will help you do that, because an implementation plan is where you list out all of the tasks that will be required for each service that you want to provide, each intervention, each event that you plan on conducting, and getting very specific about what task you need to complete, what resources you will need. So the same way that your logic model will help you point out your resources, again, your implementation plan will also be able to make it very clear for you what your resources will be, what you need to secure in terms of resources. And an implementation plan will also help you get clear on deadlines. Sometimes it's very easy to have this big idea of what service you want to provide or what intervention you want to do, but you can get behind schedule, you can get off track. It can be hard to hold yourself and other people on your team accountable, but when you create an implementation plan, you're able to set deadlines and have a timeline that you can track yourself and hold yourself accountable to make sure that you're getting all of your tasks completed according to the deadline, and making progress to make sure your program is moving along to really be able to bring about that change and those impacts in the lives of people you serve in a timely manner. Okay, it also will help you with team management. If you are deciding you want to recruit additional people or recruit additional staff members or additional volunteers, and you don't want to do everything by yourself, it'll help you be able to manage your team, because it'll be clear who exactly is doing what, who is responsible for which task. You'll also be able to see if there's places where maybe you're overloading certain people on your team and other people are not doing their fair share. It'll help you be able to distribute the work fairly among your team based off the strengths and the availability of everyone on your team, and make sure that your program and your strategy is actually being put into place in a very organized and manageable way. So these 3 simple steps are originally designed to help you make your program's strategy or your strategic plan stronger and more able to be effective, and help you create impact with more clarity, understanding exactly what outcomes you want to create and how exactly you should go about creating those outcomes, making sure you're able to implement the strategy in a way that is organized and effective, and hopefully reduce a sense of overwhelm or confusion about how to move forward. But it not only helps you increase your program design or strengthen your program strategy, but it also puts you in a better position to write quality grant proposals and submit competitive grant applications. When your program design and your program strategy is strong and effective, and when you are able to clearly communicate about your plan, and when you're able to make it easy for others to understand what exactly you're wanting to accomplish through your programs, how you're planning to create change in the lives of those you serve, and how your services will be effective at creating that change, you're more likely to be competitive in the grant application process. You'll have an easier time explaining the components and the details of your program and making it clear to grant funders why your organization will be a good investment for their grant funds, and how you are prepared to use their funds to create maximum impact through your programs. You'll be able to use concrete evidence-based information and not just write fluff, right? Or not just base all of your information and answers to the grant application questions on assumptions or on hopes, right? You'll be able to say, no, this is our clear strategy. We've connected the dots. We know exactly which measurable outcomes and measurable objectives we want our program to accomplish, what experience we want to provide to our beneficiaries, and here is how we know that our services and our interventions will help them accomplish that, help our participants go from point A to point B, because we planned it out, we've done our research, and we're confident that our program will be effective, right? And we're also prepared to implement. We've made an implementation plan. We know what resources we need. We know how we're going to use your funding to help us acquire those resources. We are clear on exactly what members of our team are going to be involved in this, and we're able to manage our program as well to make sure that you'll be able to really be successful in using those grant funds. And all of this is very important in other areas of fundraising as well. Even if you are not going to get grants, it's very important for you to be able to communicate about these components and these details with every other donor that you would want to support your organization as well. So if you already have your strategic plan, if you already have a program design, these are just 3 things that you can think about if you want to incorporate them to make your program design even stronger, even more clear. If you've already done these things, I just encourage you to continue reviewing them, continue to improve them, and learn and educate yourself on how to make these components even better. So that wraps up today's lesson. If you have any questions or if you want any more resources or feedback on this information, go ahead and click the link in the description box to visit our website. There will be some links there that you can follow to get connected with more resources or to contact me if you have any other questions or concerns or need any assistance on the grant application journey for your organization. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video, and I'll see you in the next video.